Hey guys, welcome to another episode of El Jefe's Chop Shop. This week we're working on the wagon, but we're not doing rust. Thank goodness. So this week I want to get into the engine and gearbox. This is mechanically alright as far as I know. It does need a new clutch because this one has been kicked a few times. The water pump's also bad, and I just want to repaint everything and reseal it all while I've got it out. So I'm going to pull this apart, just get the gearbox off, put that aside, and then I'll grab the engine and chuck it on the stand, which has another 7K on it currently. And then I'll rip this apart and clean it up and reseal everything. Alright, so you've seen me pick up the engine, put it on the engine stand, rip the gearbox off, and then I've also stripped the engine apart. I have started cleaning some of the parts, but I also sent some to one of Dale's mates. He's got a parts cleaning, like a spinny dishwasher thing. So he's going to clean some bits for me. But I do have the block here, and I'm going to start cleaning this and getting it ready to put some paint on it and make it look a bit nicer than it does. So let's jump into me scrubbing this for about 5 hours. Alright, so I apologise about all the time lapses, but this is a hard thing to really talk about. I've just sealed up the panel on the back of the head, which is to stop the coolant. Sometimes there's a heater line coming off of there. I've got the new rear main seal and that new seal to hold the, that back plate on. All cleaned all the bolts and everything. Then coming around the side, we've got the fuel pump delete on. I did leave the little spacer, probably not necessary, but left it on there just in case. Then we got the timing chain back on with the back plate housing thing. That's painted and resealed. Then we've got the original tensioner on here. Made sure all the marks lined up. New water pump on here. So this is a K10 one because it's got like nothing on it basically. So I do want to try and either or drill and tap this so I can block it off, or maybe get it welded shut. I'm not too sure yet. The thermostat housing is currently getting cleaned at an engine shop, along with the oil filter housing, the timing cover, and a few other little bits and pieces that I had when Dale was here, because he's got a mate that does that. I then put all the studs back into the bottom of the block. I've had a lot of trouble with these snapping over the years, so I Loctited them in, which will be great when they snap, but they're all been replaced with like good ones. I did break 3 or 4 when I was pulling this apart a long time ago. So they're all in. Everything's all resealed. I've resealed the oil pump to the pickup. Got all the exhaust studs cleaned up, or exhaust and intake. Got all those cleaned up, and also Loctited those in so they don't hopefully undo. Because there's just with studs, it's a problem that I always end up with. Put the nut on and then undo the nut. It takes the stud out. Then just clean up all the bolt faces so they're all nice and clean. I decided against repainting this because it kind of looks like it's got a lot of miles on it at the moment, which is kind of cool. And I don't really want to go through the trouble of painting it all and then replacing the engine shortly anyway. So I have got another engine that I want to get rebuilt, which will replace this one. So I'm just really doing only a reseal and like a proof of concept with all the new timing gear and the sensors and stuff, but I do hope this lasts for a little bit longer. But there's no point painting it because I'm happy with how it is. It's just got a bit of like old paint on it still, which will eventually come off. So I think it looks pretty good. So then I also cleaned the sump, which is back there. I need to reseal that, but I can't put that on until the front cover's back on. So I need to wait till that gets back from Dale, and I'm waiting on a rocker cover, which I've ordered from New Zealand. So I'm just going to wrap this up, put cling wrap around it, and just wrap it all up and make sure it's all pretty good and doesn't get any metal filings in it. And then we'll get back to it when I have all the parts that are required to button it up. Alright, so moving on to the next problem. Got the flywheel out of the 7K, out of the wagon. They're very big, as you can tell. So some idiot has snapped a bolt in here and had just ignored it with the old clutch. That was definitely past me. So I'm going to try and weld a nut on here and then try and crack it open and get that piece of bolt out. And then I can get this faced when I get a clutch. So I'm going to chuck on the time lapse and let's try and get this out. That was the easiest stud removal I've ever had to do. So she's out, and that took longer to set up the welder than it did to actually get the bolt out. So that's a win. This flywheel is now good to go get machined once I get a clutch, which is in Gavin's hands. Garage 7's hooking me up with some kind of clutch. So that's about all I can do for now. I'm just going to leave it until I have some more parts, and I'll catch up the episode right then. Alright, so another repair that I need to do is these little nubs here. So this is out of my K10. I kept it many years ago because I knew there was one missing in the wagon. So with the wagon, so the firewall was like this. This side here is where I want to put the wiring loom. This side here is where the rust hole is. So I need to get one of these nubs drilled out and off of this panel so I can weld it into the wagon once I've fixed that rust hole in the wagon's firewall. Alright, so funnily enough, when I finished doing these yesterday, so these are the little nubs that I cut off, Dale called me and he was bringing this stuff back over. So I just left it for the night and now I'm ready to put it all back together. So some of this stuff he sandblasted and chucked in the engine cleaner tank thing. And then other stuff that has passageways in it, he just chucked in the cleaner because he didn't want to get like sand in the fuel rail and in the injectors and stuff. So, injector holes. So all this stuff's nice and clean. I'll just hit it with some wax and grease remover just to make sure, and then put it all back on the engine, which I will do right now. Alright, so I got the front cover back on. I did end up taking the middle cover off and then resealing it because I didn't put the right bolts in and didn't really want to seal it how it was. So I got that in, got the oil pump back on, or put oil filter housing, and then we've got this little adapter, so that's going to go to the other sensors for the link, which you have to mount not on the engine, and then the original one, so it's just a little T-join. Then we have also done the thermostat housing, so that's all back together. It's an 82 degree thermostat housing. When I can't work out why it's overheating. It's not, it's just an 82. So with that, we've got a new link coolant sensor and the original dash coolant sensor, so that'll be good. I do want to block these off. Whether I just do a little rubber cap like it was, or whether I get them welded up is a different question. I just tried to chuck the sump gasket on and the sump on, and it's a different gasket. So if you have a 7K, you need a 7K gasket, which is a little bit annoying because I don't have one here. So I'm gonna have to order one of those and chuck the sump on when I get it. I also don't have the dizzy, which needs to go in. and the rocker cover is on, but that's the old one. I've got a new one coming. Then the thermostat housing can't go on either because I need a new gasket for there. I can't put any of the intake or the exhaust on because that's all got to go with new gaskets, which I don't have. So pretty much as far along as I can be until I get some more gaskets. So I'll catch you up when I get to that. All right, so I'm still waiting on parts for the engine. While Mitch was down, we built a diff. So I'll jump into what this combo is and how much of a pain in the ass it was. So this diff setup looks pretty simple. It probably was, but we had to work it out ourselves. So originally what I wanted to do was use a K20 housing, K30 axles, and just bolt it into the K16 with the width of a K20. So apparently everyone does this, but no one's ever noticed, as far as we can tell. So K30 is about 50 mil or 60 mil longer than a K20, or wider, sorry. So what everyone does is cuts about 5 mil off of either axle and slots them in, and they seem to work perfectly fine. What everyone doesn't tell you is you gain the rest of the width here, so between the bearing and the hub flange. So in theory, what happened was the K20 diff, which is supposed to be a 1310, ended up being about 1340. So we gained about 30 mil more than we wanted. So Mitch and I were just doing a bit of a brainstorm over this. We ended up with a K20 housing. We ended up with the original 16 center, which is actually out of a Tercel, the AL25. So that's a 3.9 or a 3.7, can't remember. Then we had to move the spring mounting perches in a bit for the K10 position. Then K30 axle and brakes, which was important because K20 brakes don't work with the K30 axles. Then that gained us a bit extra on the ends, but we cut a little bit out the middle and they'd all bolted together. It's all sweet. Had to buy some new K30 drums, which I've also painted black. And then the last step is to run a new brake line because we don't have the original one. A K21 would work, but we don't have one. So absolute mission. It actually took us about 3 days between this and the other stuff we were doing to get this all together. But the actual assembly process probably only took like 2 hours, other than the moving of the spring perches. So that was a mission. Is it narrow enough is a question. I'm not 100% sure. We did put the wheels on this thing and roll it under the K16. The wheels are kind of spicy now, which is what I wanted, but we don't know if it's too much or whatever. So when I put this back in the car and get the car back on the ground, which is a while away, I'm going to have to see if this is the right width. If it's not, I'm going to have to do something drastic, really, to change the width of the diff. So we shall see. But that's where we're at with that. So another thing that happened when Mitch was here, I got a bandsaw. So this popped up on Marketplace. This is the exact model, be it a little bit older because this has been sitting for a while. This is the exact model that I've had on my wish list for a long time. So this thing's worth $1,900. The brand new 2021 or 2022 is $1,800 or $1,900. This one was $1,000. It is a 2009. But as you might notice, it's never been used. So it's got no wheels on it. It's got not had coolant run through it. It's got all the original tags and silicone stuff, the anti-water stuff. And yeah, it's basically not been used. It just got sat underneath another machine and got really grotty. So he did turn it on while we were there for half a second and then turned it off again just to make sure the motor did work. But should be onto a winner with this thing. And it was basically half price, so I'm super stoked, and it is exactly what I was after anyway. So new update to the shop. Hell yeah. All right, so that's it for this week. Unfortunately, we didn't get the rest of the engine back together. Still waiting on parts. They can be a little bit slow sometimes, and especially at the moment with all of the world's situation. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next week.